So, before we start casting with the rod, I'd like to take you through all the different details on these rods. As always, Scott just has outstanding quality of every single component of their rods. The cork, the handle is just great, and the reel seat in particular is new and really awesome. It's made with only one of these, and it has an O-ring, and basically it's very fast to lock, and it feels really tight and securely locked, but it's so easy to spin. Also some really nice quality fittings on the rest of this. It has the best guides that money can buy, and basically the overall finish with the hand drawn logo and stuff like that. And then the color scheme is red and black, which is something I really like, because I like my Nautilus reels, and the Nautilus color for the X reel, which is a great option for this, is also red and black. So right off the bat, you have an almost a custom feel to combining the Nautilus with the Scott here. But just overall, this just looks and feel as a Scott rod should do. It just reeks. It's the essence of and pinnacle of quality as always from Scott. So really looking forward to casting this and testing this against the other two. Hello and welcome. Today I'm testing out and trying out the new Scott Centric rod. This is a 9 feet 5 weight, and today I've brought the Radian 9 feet 5 weight, and I've brought the Sage Igniter 9 feet 5 weight, and of course the new Scott Centric. And I'm gonna try each of these 3 rods with the same line. I'm gonna use a scientific angler's line that has a belly of about 9 meters and weighs 14 grams. And I'm gonna use that line to try to really get to test all of these 3 rods up against one another. And later on, because we're out on the water, I'm gonna take the Centric for a spin in the local river fishing for sea trout. So this is gonna be an in-depth review of the new Scott Centric, and I'm so excited. I was missing an eye. So now we're ready to cast with the Centric, and this is something, you know, I'm always looking forward to seeing new gear, but in particular new gear from Scott, because Scott do not have, you know, planned new rods like Sage, for instance. Sage, they release a new rod series every 5 years, because that's how their model is. Scott only releases new gear when they think they have something that is better from what they previously had. So now we're ready to cast with the Centric. The line I'm using on this is a Scientific Angler's Volantis line. It has a belly of 9 meters and it weighs 14 grams. So basically, let's get this started. And I'm fairly certain that this rod can cast the line, so I'm just gonna pull out a lot of line here. This is compared to the Radian, which is a rod that I've had for many years, so I'm very confident about how that feels. This rod is faster. It loads faster, and you can make some really tight loops here. So I'm just gonna have to sort this line out so I can really see how far and how easily this rod casts. So it's not tangled here. It's ready. Okay. So on this line there is an indication of when to cast. I don't really need that, but anyway. So basically, you see, I'm just gonna see exactly how far this can cast. That was the line, just like that. And if you noticed, you know, I didn't have to pull as hard as possible and stuff like that. It just feels incredibly light, incredibly well balanced, and I'm quite impressed. This just feels so very right. I think it's safe to say that Scott has done it again. As I said, it's faster than the Radian. Radiant. It feels, you know, it just feels potent, this rod. I'm really liking the feel of it. It has some really good casting potential when it comes to, you know, throwing really long. It does that exceedingly well. But it also feels like it has, you know, that thing that made the Radian so special, which was it was a really good fishing rod. It was not just designed for casting, but it felt right in so many fishing situations. And this has kind of that same feel as the Radian did, except it's a bit faster, and I think it's a bit lighter, and it just feels right. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see that later on when we get to the actual fishing, but it feels really accurate as well. And I feel like I have tremendous control of the line also. So I'm fairly impressed with this rod so far. It just feels awesome. Now I'm gonna switch the line to the Radian, and after that to the igniter, and then back to this one to get the exact, you know, to get a feel for the three different rods and exactly what sets them apart. So I'm gonna change to the Radian now. So I have mounted exactly the same setup here on the Radian, the rod that the Centric is gonna, you know, is gonna take over from, and I've had a Radian for many years in a 9 feet 5 weight, and it really the Radian is a spectacular rod. I've been so pleased and so happy with the rod. But when I'm just, you know, before I even have started casting as far as I can, there is some really differences between. I can feel that between the Radian and the Centric already. The Radian is more deep. So when casting with the Radiant, you feel the rod it works a bit further down into the blank, and also what I feel here is I have to spend a bit more power in order to actually cast the entire line than I did with the Centric. I think that's probably due to if I didn't have entangled the weeds there, then the line would have been thrown anyway. But I think it's probably due to that these two rods are probably designed for something a little different, maybe. But the Radian here is not as fast as the Centric, but it's still, you know. I'm not gonna say anything regarding the Radian that is not positive, because I've been so pleased with this rod, and it really is a great rod. But it's different from the Centric. The Centric is faster. The Centric seems a bit lighter, but also it just feels a bit more potent. It's easier to cast long, but I think if you compare the Radian and the Centric, you see it can cast the full line with no problem. But I think if you compare the Centric and the Radian, perhaps on shorter distances or something like that, then I think the just from casting on the grass here, I'm gonna have to prove that point later on in the water. But I think the Radian would be a bit more accurate, and maybe a bit easier to cast, but a bit easier to cast fairly long. But if you want that really long distance with minimal effort, then I think the Centric is probably the better choice. So, you know, it depends on what exactly you're aiming for and what exactly you're targeting with the rod. But the Radian is just such a harmonic and such an awesome rod. But so is the Centric, and those two rods are definitely different. Definitely different. It's just a matter of what you probably what you need from the rod, for you to decide which one of the two rods that you prefer. You know, it's a nice rod, this one. It is. I was so impressed with this when first it launched also. But now I'm gonna try the line with the last of these 3 rods. I'm gonna have it on my igniter, which is probably one of the fastest 5 weights I ever tried. And I'm gonna see how that works compared to these other 2. So we're gonna swap the line again. So now I've loaded my igniter, and I bought my igniter because I want to fish the Danish coastline for sea trout. And that's the type of fishing where you fish relatively large streamer flies, and you fish for a full day, and you just blast away and blast away, blast away. The more distance, the more cast you can make, the more water you cover, the more fish you catch. And basically for that, this Sage igniter here is just truly awesome. This is not a rod that is, you know, it feels very, you know, feels like it has a lot of finesse and feels very subtle. This is a brute tool that you use to just basically get the job done. It's the fastest rod around, and this just casts far, and just, you know, gets the job done. So the igniter is faster, and it's more faster than the Centric. But what the igniter also is it's a tool for casting really long, and it does that very well. But it's a not very forgiving rod. So if you miss your timing, if your timing is a bit off, then this rod will not perform for you. So the igniter has a lot of potential, but it's also quite demanding of the angler, quite demanding on the skill set, the skill level of the individual angler who casts this rod. I feel like I can say that I'm a fairly good fly caster, and when I hit this just right, you know, it just casts, it kicks like a horse, and that's what I like about the igniter. I think the Centric is a bit more forgiving, and it still has the potential, and still has, you know, is fast, so it could be a really good rod for fishing big streamers in lakes or on the coastline like we do here in Denmark. But it's a bit more forgiving, it's a bit more easy to cast probably than the igniter. So basically I think it feels like I'm gonna bring back the Centric, try that for one more time in a second. But from trying these 3 rods out, I would definitely say that the Radian is the most delicate of the 3, the one that probably presents the fly on shorter distance the great. The Centric has a bit of both rods. It has a bit of this hellish, potent madness that the igniter has, but it also has some of the delicacy and some of the abilities to present from the Radian. So the Centric is kind of in between the igniter and the Radian. It has a lot of the power, a lot of the potential, but it also has some of the finesse and some of the skills to be able to present better than, for instance, the igniter. So I think it's really a nice hybrid. It feels like a nice hybrid just in between those 2. I'm gonna try the Centric again just to give it a final verdict. At least from the grass here. So now it's back to the Centric, and I had kind of had a feeling about this, but now that I am just, you know, casting this rod again, then it's a certainty. The Centric here is probably gonna be placed in between those 2 others. It's not as fast as the igniter, but it still has that potential. It still has a great potential for casting really far. But it's not as fast and not as unforgiving as the igniter is. On the other hand, because it is not as fast as the igniter, but still fast, really fast, it has some of the really good things from the Radian. Because the Radian and the igniter are 2 so different rods compared to what they're designed for and what they do best, that I think this is a really cool merge of the 2. It still has some of that feeling from the Radian, that this is a rod that is designed for fishing. This is a rod that can present a fly fairly well, and this is a rod that really just feels right in your hand. Like the Radian was one of the best fishing rods I ever tried, but it lacked that oomph, it lacked that power that the Igniter have for the sea trout fishing, and that's why I've had both the Radian and the Igniter. But what I think I would have gotten, and if this rod had been available for, let's say, 3 years ago or something like that, then I don't think I would have bought both the Radian and the Igniter. I think I would have bought this one, because this one can do both. This one feels like it can cast fairly accurate, and it feels like a fishing rod, but it still has more power, more potential than the Radian. So it can also be that rod that you use to, you know, just bomb away for a full day on the coastline. So this rod is in between those two, and it just feels freaking nice, and it just feels right. This is, I haven't fished it yet, but judging here from just, you know, this lawn here, this feels like a really remarkable rod that Scott has done yet again. And I'm fairly confident that I'm gonna have to own at least one, maybe two, or perhaps even three of these, because this rod's just performing. I like the Centric. That must be the conclusion. I like the Centric, and if it had been available, I would only have gotten this one and not the Radian and the Igniter. I think that's the conclusion. Look at it go! Thank you for watching. So now I've been fishing with the Centric here for the past couple of hours, and we've been doing quite a lot of different things to test it out, to see what it's capable of. We've been fishing with some really heavy flies, fished upstream, where presentation is very important with the foam flies. We've used bigger tube flies as well. So basically we have put this through a lot of different things, and as I suspected when we tried it on the lawn, this is actually an in-between thing between the Scott Radian and the Sage Igniter, because this has some of the delicacy, some of the precision, some of the really, you know, feel of a truly remarkable fishing tool, you know, from the Radian. But it's faster than the Radian. It's stronger than the Radian. It has more power. So it's also easier to make those longer casts. That is what the Igniter is really good for. It's not as powerful because basically the Igniter is just, you know, it's kind of like a hammer. You know, it's good for one thing, and that's pounding away at stuff. But it does that really well, the Igniter. This can do some of that as well. This casts far, quite effortlessly. But it's not as extreme, or as, I wouldn't say insane, but as extreme as the Igniter. So had this rod been on the market when I decided I needed two different 5-weights, one for fishing river, foam beetles and stuff like that, and one for the coast, then I would not have needed to buy two. I could have done with this one. This is a remarkable fly fishing rod, and I am really thrilled about this whole series. And the Centric series, I can promise you, I'm gonna own at least one, but probably more from this series from Scott. It is a truly cool and awesome fly fishing rod, for sure.